विश्व में हमने युवाओं की आईटी एनर्जी के माध्यम से अपना एक रुतबा खड़ा किया है और भारत इसके बाद के लिए गर्व कर सकता है। दुनिया में हम आंख में आंख मिला करके बात कर सकते हैं। और ये मेरा साफ मैं हमेशा कहता आया हूं, आईटी प्लस आईटी इज इक्वल टू आईटी। इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी प्लस इंडियन टैलेंट इज इक्वल टू इंडिया टुमारो।
Hello and welcome everyone. This is Harshal Desai from Elets Technomedia Private Limited. I welcome you all to the 18th edition of World Education Summit today on this wonderful virtual platform. We are glad to inform you all that today we have a very exciting panel from United States of America, and we are going to discuss, we are going to organize this panel discussion on nurturing physical, social, and emotional development of children in new normal. I'll take a minute to introduce all the esteemed panelists. We have with us Mr. Nicolas Lepine, Montessori upper elementary teacher, athletic director, physical education instructor, and sports coach. We have with us Mr. Kevin Kalra, Chief Operating Officer, Montessori Preschool, Texas, USA. We have also been joined by Ms. Debbie Elder, owner and head of school, Shady Oak Primary School, Virginia, USA. We have Ms. Lalita Trehan, Montessori educator and trainer, Houston, Texas, for United States and India. And we have also been joined by Ms. Peggy, lawyer, founder and CEO, SPED Homeschool, Conroe, Texas, USA. I, Harshal Desai, welcome you all on this virtual platform in the 18th edition of World Education Summit.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we are really excited to be among you today. World Education Summit, I'll take one more minute. As I mentioned earlier, it's one of the renowned event that we organize every year in the country. And we have been able to organize a couple of editions even in the lockdown. We have worked even during the pandemic, to bring together the key stakeholders under one roof, and we have tried to create true knowledge sharing platform. Without further delay, we'd like to start this panel discussion now. And to start this panel discussion, I would like to seek an opening remark from all the esteemed panelists one by one on the subject nurturing physical, social, and emotional development of children in new normal. How significant this subject is. And I would like to start it with Mr. Nicolas Lepine. Over to you, Mr. Lepine. I request you to share your opening remark, and at the same time, we will also request you to introduce yourself and your institute as well.
Oh, hello, my name is Nicolas Lepine. I teach at Rogers Park Montessori School in Chicago. I am the athletic director and physical education teacher, as well as a sports coach. But during the pandemic, being a former upper elementary classroom teacher, I had to essentially stop our sports programs and go back into the classroom to support the school. I'm also the creator of Montessori Physical Education, which is a curriculum that combines the classroom Montessori curriculum with physical education and sports. In regards to our panel discussion topic, this new normal started out as very unnormal, where last year we essentially had to stop in-person instruction and go all virtual, which is very disruptive to the child. Our job was to pivot as quickly as possible to provide quality instruction online, where the children could still feel a connection with each other. And my job specifically, keep them active and motivated, and which was just what we would hope nurture the whole child. Thankfully, the school that I work in, we were able to get our students back in person this school year, but we had lots of adjustments, including face masks, PPE, pods, very small classrooms. But our ability to get the students back in person was a big, did it much to kind of bring back that connection socially and spiritually, and then being able to work with them physically as well with the physical education components, which had to be altered a lot due to COVID-19 restrictions. However, we kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. Many of us have gotten vaccines, and as that continues, we can kind of get back to what life used to be like. But our job in between was trying to give a foundation for the students as everything around their life was changing. We wanted to keep some type of normalcy for them and their community.
Right. Thank you so much for your opening remark, Nicholas. I would now request Mr. Kevin Kalra for the opening remark.
Hi, everyone. Good morning and a howdy from Houston, Texas. My name is Kevin, and I serve as the Chief Operating Officer with Montessori Preschool and Montessori Children's School. We're a boutique network of 3 Montessori schools across Northwest Houston, Texas, and we serve children ages 6 weeks through 6 years. One thing that makes us unique is that we're owned and operated by a Montessori teacher, and we have a huge emphasis on developing global citizenship in the early years. Definitely, this has been a completely new normal for us, and it really inspired a lot of innovation and creative thinking. And so in April, during the height of the pandemic here in Houston, we actually closed all 3 of our schools because we thought it was the safer thing to do. And then we opened a virtual Montessori school for our students. And that was extremely challenging because we had to translate so many sensorial experiences into a virtual one. But it worked really well. Our intention was to maintain the magic of childhood, the magic of Montessori throughout these virtual experiences. We created virtual materials, and we really encouraged our parents to get into the mind of Dr. Maria Montessori and become very resourceful. We held everything from a special tea party for our children to creating paper to doing all kinds of exciting crafts and hands-on activities that still allowed us to achieve the same outcomes they would get in a Montessori school.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kalra, for those opening remarks. And I would now request Debbie Elder to share her views on the particulars on this subject.
Thank
Debbie.
you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I am Debbie Elder. I own an elementary school in Richmond, Texas. We serve 1st through 5th grade students. And we've built our school on 6 pillars: connection, communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving. And that has kind of driven how we operate for the last 7 years. I'm excited to say that I learned a lot when I was teaching. I had 15 middle and high schools, and then I did some college planning for about 3 years. So I learned all of the things that we need in order to move our students forward, both spiritually, intellectually, physically, and emotionally. And so we are evenly matched, if you will, with our curriculum on the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic, and on social and emotional learning. We do a lot of allowing our students to have time to really sit down and think about what they've learned, what's working, what's not working. We do a lot of work with our students outdoors. We have a minimum of 2 hours a day where we're outdoors, whether that's playing and or learning. We believe in play-based learning and place-based learning. So it's not unusual to see a math class being held on the playground or somewhere in the neighborhood, or an ELA relay race as they're learning their spelling words. What we noticed at the beginning of the pandemic, when our governor shut down our state and we were forced to close our school, that we pivoted very quickly to an online learning platform, but it was very anxious inducing to our students. We had many town hall meetings with our parents and found that that just really wasn't academically with integrity with us. So we made the decision in the fall to open up. We had to make a lot of changes. We had the CDC come through our school and share with us exactly what we could and could not do. We abided by their recommendations and had a very healthy start to our school year up until today. We'll start spring break tomorrow, and we've done incredibly well. We've been able to stay open, which has been very, very encouraging for us. Our students have been very open to discuss what they're feeling, how they're dealing with it. They've been very open also to suggestions from us on things that they can do. One of the things that we implemented that has been very successful is we've started a weekly Zoom call with our alumni, giving them an opportunity, those that have graduated from us and moved on to middle and high school, to really talk in a safe environment with people that they trust about what they're feeling and what they're going through this pandemic. Because as they got older, they recognized they didn't want to burden their parents. And so we've had some really healthy conversations, and that has grown to some really great innovative things that they've been able to implement. They've decided to start a podcast, to start interviewing past students to see how they've come through the pandemic and what they're doing moving forward in the classes that they're in. We also have learned that there's a lot of things that we shifted to during this pandemic that we're going to keep doing because they worked. And so really trying to look at this with a very positive attitude and modeling that for our children and letting them see that, you know what, we have grit, we have perseverance, we have the ability to set the mindset to go through this. And we've really seen our children adapt. And more importantly, we've heard from our parents that that sort of environment and that ability to have that attitude has really trickled into the home. Our parents have been great. They've been really willing to hop onto different calls with us. We had a community event last night in a park. We had lots of social distancing, but a sense of community, which is really important. And we had some great fellowship. So throughout this, really listening to our children, giving them a place to be validated for their feelings and to know that as the adults, there is safe, there is routines that we've kept, which I think is really important. Students at this age in elementary school really need those routines on a daily basis to feel safe. And so we've been able to do that. And I can say I've had a lot more one-on-one discussions with students this year who are suffering and unknowing and afraid for their grandparents or other people. And so knowing that they have a safe place to discuss those things where they can be heard has really been important to us. And I feel like we've done a great job at enabling them to feel they have somewhere they can discuss those feelings and those needs. So thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Debbie, for these wonderful remarks. And I would now request Ms. Lalita Trehan, Montessori educator and trainer from Houston, Texas, United States, and India, to share her opening remark with the audience.
Thank you, Harshal. As you said, my name is Lalita Trehan, and I'm founder of Sugar Creek Montessori School in Houston. We have one campus in Sugarland, one in Katy, and one in Fulshire. Um, like Debbie was saying earlier, I kind of resonate with her. Children are very resilient. I feel like we don't give them credit for their intelligence and their adaptability. It's very, very important that we listen to our children, especially at this time. And I would say parents have really come to our rescue because because of the loss of jobs or different reasons. Quite a few parents decide to stay home, especially the mothers. Decide to stay home and take care of the children, which was good in a way for children's physical development and social and emotional, because they are like a consistent and constant companion and taking care of them, and that kind of gave children um, the thoughts that, oh, I am, somebody is taking care of me and mom is at home. So they were having, it was a different time. The time when children were on site and now they were online, especially like we were talking earlier, it has been a little bit hard on the little children for 3 to 4 years old, 2 to 3, 4 years old to go online. They don't have that attention span and concentration. So in our school, we decided to stay open for online for 3 to 5 years old and elementary, but we closed our under years age children's classes. We kind of shut down for a while till we opened up again in fall. And since fall, we have been having good steady stream of children and coming to our school and benefiting. As we all know, the children need to be in a group setting to really work on their emotional and social skills. It's very hard for the parents to teach those skills at home. If they have siblings at home, then it's kind of different. They do benefit to how to get along and how to self-regulate their emotions. But if they don't have siblings at home, they're by themselves, then sometimes the parents have to spend more time to interact with them. I feel like the trust we develop with our children is very important for them to develop their social emotional skills, trust, patience, how we adults act in their environment, teachers, parents, anybody who is in their environment, who acts patiently, listen to them, how they're feeling, and we are kind of being mindful of their behavior, if they're sad or they're happy, and also taking care of their physical needs, which of course we do, plus making sure that we are taking them outdoors, bicycling or walking, going to the park, making sure they're virtually connected with the other friends, even if they can't go. People have come up with beautiful creative ideas of how to keep in touch with the other children. They have drive-by birthday celebrations where the families come out, set up a table, and everybody drives by and wishes them and stops and say hello. So, and exchange gifts and all that. I think these are very important things where we let the children talk to their friends on the phone. These are very important things in children's lives to stay connected. I know it's hard that we can't show our emotions. We can't hug our children, which we are so used to when we go to school. We hug the children. We can't do that anymore, but we just do elbow hug like this, and we blow kisses. So they need to know that they're loved, they're valued, they're cared, they're listened. Um, Especially during pandemic, where the home environment sometimes is not the same because parents are also under a lot of stress. So, but the good news is the children are very resilient. They adapt very well. So we have to understand that we have to get in tune with the children's needs. Like Maria Montessori says, don't look at me, don't look at my finger where I'm pointing, look at the child. So it's very important that we look at the children and meet their needs, their emotional, social, physical, needs, so they can have develop their cognitive needs and skills also. I feel like this time has been very hard on all of us, but we have learned a lot. Like somebody was saying, we have come up with very creative ideas how to teach children, especially our Montessorians. We were like, wow, what are we going to do now? We can't teach online. All the children were, all the teachers were raising their hands up and they're saying, we can't do that. We can't do that. Then I said, okay, let's start thinking what we can do. And we came up with beautiful, beautiful ideas where we opened the school, the teachers were able to come in the classroom and the Zoom sessions are happening. And we gave a lot of tips to the parents how to prepare hands-on material at home to help the younger children. So, like in every adversity, we learn a few things. So I have to say that we have learned a lot and we have to be thankful for what we have, not what we don't have. And I'll leave at that point.
Thank you so much, Mr. And wonderful views you have shared in your opening remark. And I now request Peggy, founder and CEO of SPED Homeschool, Conroe, Texas, USA, to share her remarks, please.
Thank you, Harshal. My name is Peggy Ployhar, and I'm the founder and CEO of SPED Homeschool. We empower parents to teach special education at home. And I've been homeschooling for 18 years. I've graduated 2 of my own and have 1 left. And when this pandemic started, of course, we were set up in a place where people were clamoring for the information that we had. It's amazing. I do a weekly broadcast. I bring on people who are professionals in both the education realm, the homeschooling realm, and teach parents just what they need to know. And of course, our website is visited globally by parents looking for resources on how to teach at home, and to especially those struggling learners, anywhere from just mild learning issues all the way up to children who have profound learning issues, and we address all of that. And so it's been a wonderful year to just encourage families, because they've been looking for resources to use at home, and we've already had those set up and continue to develop those. The things that I have mostly seen is that those parents who maybe had been on the verge of homeschooling or have thought about it, thought, they were kind of forced into that situation. And a lot of them realized how much they loved it and how much they loved spending time with their children and being at home, that they had never, I don't think if they would have been forced, they would have tried. And the thing that I always focus on with parents is that learning comes from a relationship. And you have to have a solid relationship with a child for them to trust you in order for that learning to happen. And a lot of times in our families, we have been so busy that we just pass one another even in our own homes. And this past year has caused us to step back and reevaluate everything we're doing, all of the activities we've been involved in, and especially what are we doing with the relationships and how are we raising our children, and what are we doing in our homes to cultivate those things that we find most valuable, and are we actually propagating those in our children? And so that's just what we've seen on our side, and to be able to encourage these families who feel that this is just a good fit for them has been wonderful, because I know it's not for everyone, and sometimes it's just for a season, but that's what our organization is about, is just continuing to encourage and to help those parents who really feel like this is our calling, this is the way that we have been called to educate our children. So thanks.
Right. Thank you so much, Peggy. Taking clue from what Debbie Elder said, on the parents, the role of the parents have played in this pandemic. The transition has not been very easy for students, of course, but parents have also played a very significant role when it comes to online education. And we are seeing this in this country, in India, where we are currently located. they are there for their children every time there are online classes, and it's like both mom, their father, mother, they're sitting beside their uh, the students and taking the classes. How has been your experience, Debbie? What is your comment on the role of parents when it comes to develop that emotional element, and how do you uh, how do you connect this?
That's a great question. So, like Peggy, I homeschooled my daughters until they went to college. My youngest graduated 2 years early as valedictorian of the university that she finished at. So, one of the things I used to go around the country training teachers on classroom management, and I would fly out on Friday nights and fly home Saturday nights. And I would sit in my seat on the airplane, and the person next to me would say, "What are you doing? Where are you going?" And I'd tell them, and they're like, "So you have children?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I got kids. Do they go to school?" I'm like, "Oh, heck no, I homeschool my kids." And they're like, "What about social emotion? How do you get them to socialize?" And I went, "Well, I'm going to tell you a couple of things. I think I'm better equipped to teach my children how to be socially appropriate than their peers, because I'm older, I know ways to do that." And we were at a Christmas event, and some of my neighbors, we had just recently homeschooled our children, and some of my neighbors had said to me, "How's it going?" And somebody made a comment along that line about how do you socialize your kids, and I went, "Wow, that's a really good point." So I said, all the preteens are upstairs playing a video game, nobody's talking, and they're passing a remote back and forth as they play this game. I said, "That's my older daughter in there talking to the hostess grandparents, and they're having a very engaged conversation. They're smiling, they're laughing, and there's my youngest playing with the toddlers." I said, "I don't know, you tell me who's socially equipped to be out in this world and has their emotions intact." So I think it's really important for parents to model this. We often think, like I know so many parents who would never take their child to a soccer practice without throwing around the ball in the backyard, making sure they know, if you're going to go that way, son, don't put the goal, that's our goal, you want to put it in this net. But yet we'll take our kids out to a social experience, a fancy dinner, with no instruction. And so I think we need to, as we do at our school, value it the same way and teach. They're not going to get it by osmosis. We've got to step in and show our children how to deal with emotions and how to be socially appropriate.
Right. There be any incident when you had to consult these parents from in your school, when parents have probably approached you and that saying that we are not able to cope up with this situation, and we don't know how to handle our children during this pandemic, especially when it comes to online education? If you'd like to share any experience.
Yes, so we had several kind of throw their hands up and kind of surrender, like, "Help, I need some help." So what we started doing was modeling for our parents and giving them an opportunity. I've taught parenting for 30 years, and there is specific things that when you look at parenting, instead of it every day is a new day, but if you have the idea of what do I want walking out my door at 18, sort of what's the big picture, all the little questions are really easy to answer. And so giving parents that ability to understand, one, everything's okay. There's not a big rush. Sometimes there's fear gets involved, and we feel that we need to correct every spelling error right away, or the child gets 17 out of 20 correct in their spelling test, and every parent in the nation wants to go back and teach those 3 words instead of celebrating the 17 they got right. And so really what I found was most helpful was to give them implementational skills that they could use, and also to release the fear. It's okay. We're going to catch them up. Right now, I just want them to feel good about who they are. Emotionally and socially, educational, getting the academics, we got you. We're going to get back after this pandemic. We're going to be able to put that in. If your child's struggling today, take a break. Go outside, play, listen to them, be with them, fill them up, nurture them. And that seemed to be the biggest impact, was really giving parents permission to not be teachers and to do what they could the best they could.
Right. Right. Nicolas, I come to you with the in the age of the mobile phones and advanced computer games. Children had already stopped going out, and they were more sitting inside their home and playing on these digital devices. For a teacher, an athletic director, physical education instructor, and sports coach like you, this must have been very much difficult for you to handle the pandemic. And what are your views? I mean, what are your views in this pandemic? when the children had already stopped going out in the age of digital devices, and the pandemic is further added to the worsen the situation. How you are handling this situation? How you are contributing? How your school is contributing to the physical development of these children in your school?
Great question. I try hard not to fall into the trap of believing that technology is ruining the kids' ability to be physical and to do all those excellent things like running and playing and things like that. Um, that's going to be part of their reality, whether we kind of like it or not. So what I feel like my job is that I need to encourage the physicality of our students, and the way that I do that is through integration. Um, Many times physical education is seen as independent of the classroom. Many times physical education is seen as maybe a second recess. And so what I try and do is take concepts from the classroom and then take games or game mechanics that are familiar to the students and merge them together. So as they play, they're hearing themes and vocabulary from the classroom as they play. So they're getting the physical components that we're looking for in physical education, but we're also reinforcing all of the classroom curriculums that that connect the student back to the classroom. So PE, or physical education, is not independent of what they do in the classroom anymore. It's just an extension of it. There have been studies from Howard Gardner at Harvard University about multiple intelligences. And while there's some debate about that, I think we can all think of some students who love to move, and that is one of the best ways that they learn. So for that student to be able to move and learn, I feel this is a fantastic opportunity for them. I also have lots of students who traditionally would not have liked physical activity or playing sports or things like that. But when they see that this is connected to the classroom, then they're more willing to give this game a shot, and they're more willing to actually participate because they see that maybe they're playing a game on photosynthesis, or they're recreating something, like the invention of language of early humans, that as they play this game, they are also participating in the lessons that they're learning in the classroom, which makes it more enriching. So in some ways, I try and hide the fact that it's both classroom work and it's physical education. And by merging them or integrating them, I'm getting the best of both worlds. And I'm trying to capture as much excitement in any way possible for the students. So kind of doubling back to the question of students love technology. And that's something that I don't think I can necessarily change, especially during the pandemic when we were relying on technology to connect us. So I don't see my job as trying to limit their exposure or police what they can or cannot do. What I try to do is create something new that is exciting, entertaining, but also educational, that gets them to participate, and also provides all the extra educational work that they may have missed because of the e-learning that kind of slowed down some of what we could do in person, but then also provides the physical activity that maybe they're missing because they're not in person anymore.
Right. How has been the response from students to this physical activities being conducted online? How has been your experience?
In general, well, it's interesting because my philosophy of integrating physical education in the classroom in the beginning, and this was years ago, was seen as novel and interesting, and there was some resistance, but now I've been doing it long enough that many of my students don't know any difference. This is the only way they've been taught physical education, is through learning from the classroom. So I would say, especially in the pandemic, I feel like it's been one of my greatest strengths to keep them engaged, is that they know that they're still practicing and learning concepts from the classroom. So it's been very helpful, actually, to reinforce, and it does help the classroom teachers as well. They see this as instead of just someone that they bring their students to, I'm part of their team. I'm an assistant teacher helping their students with concepts in the classroom. So it really has been big within our teacher community as well, because now that I'm working with them as opposed to just taking their students and doing something, now it's much more collaborative. And so it's brought our school community together professionally, but then also with our students, they can go to their classroom teacher after a PE game and talk about how fun it was, and then relay how it connects to what they're learning in the classroom. And then also the kids can come to me and say, Nick, we were studying volcanoes, and that sounds awesome. Do you have any games on volcanoes? And if I do, which I do, then now they get to do something physical and fun, which now it's even more encouraging because their interest was sparked somewhere in the classroom, and now they get to act on it physically. So it's been it's worked very well so far, and I plan on continuing. I have some good initial data with younger ages from lower elementary in terms of integrating classroom curriculum with PE, how it has helped with retention as well as learning. And later on, I'm going to do some more research with upper elementary, ages 9 to 12, to see if it's doing if it's as beneficial in the older ages as it is with the young. So I'm looking forward to conducting that research soon as well.
Great, and best wishes for you for the same. Now, coming to Mr. Kevin Kalra, being Chief Operating Officer of Montessori Preschool, Texas. So when you are COO of any school, not just the students, but you have to handle parents and your staff, your teachers as well. How has been the journey difficult for you? How has been the experience during the pandemic? How you have been able to manage all these three, the students, their parents, and your own teachers, your faculties in this pandemic?
Sure. Well, why don't I start first with the teachers? They're always the heart of our school and everything that we do. And like I said earlier, when the pandemic hit its height here in Texas, we actually closed our schools. And towards the end of the month in April, we brought our teachers back, of course, in a socially distanced way. And we talked about all of the guidelines that we need to implement and what actually is practical and what makes sense, what actually keeps children safe. So for example, in a Montessori classroom, children typically work on a small rug. That's what delineates their workspace, and that's how children learn to respect what other children are doing. But what we did was we said, well, washing a rug after every use is not very practical. So we drew rectangles on the floor so that we could still maintain the same principle and learning outcome, but we were able to do it in a safe way given the pandemic. So we really listened, and I think that's extremely important when we talk about leaders of schools and education policymakers, that they must listen to experiences on the ground in order to have more informed operational strategies. Teachers must be part of that conversation. Even here in Texas, we were given a 13-page checklist on everything we must do to maintain safety in our operations. But frankly, some of the things on that checklist were so impractical and so distant from what actually happens in the classroom. So number one was listening carefully to teachers and implementing what they're saying and giving them the support that they need to feel confident in the classroom, which they eventually did when we reopened our schools in May, and we began piloting several procedures. I think the other part of it, when we talk about parents, there were two parts to this. I think the first is giving it as understanding that safety, the issue of safety, is also partly psychological. So what can we do to give them the assurance that we're not just following guidelines, but exceeding them? So we actually did a little video tour for our parents, showing the various things that we have. Like, for example, in our classrooms, we have separate AC units, so air is not circulating from one room to the other. We modified the Montessori classrooms and reduced the number of surfaces that children were touching. We were opening the back doors of our classrooms to allow fresh air to come in. And I think that gave them confidence and the assurance when they brought their children back to school. I think the other part of working with our parents, and this is similar to what Debbie and Peggy and Lalita were saying, is that we must model that we must encourage our parents to model the right kind of behaviors at home, and then their children will reflect that. I think that this is especially true when it comes to modeling how to manage anxiety. There was incredible amounts of anxiety when children were returning to school. And we really, before the children returned, we spoke to our parents that they must demonstrate confidence. They sometimes had to fake it till they made it. They had to demonstrate and model the confidence they needed because their children will echo and reflect that in the classroom. And then the third part, I think, is around policymakers and the people who are actually affecting the day-to-day regulatory environment in what we were doing to keep everyone safe and ensuring our children were learning. And I think a big part of that was being vocal and advocating. And we actually brought together different businesses from different industries to come together to talk about the importance of early education, that children should not be missing out on these opportunities, and to be very vocal with policymakers that our teachers should be getting priority for the COVID-19 vaccine if we're to continue working with children, for example, that we need the right PPE supplies, and childcare workers and preschool teachers and all educators should be prioritized for those supplies. The right kind of funding needs to be in place, not just here in this country, but globally. This became a significant global issue as well. So I think from an operational standpoint, it really was about listening to teachers, modeling the kinds of behaviors we expect in our school and thus supporting our children, and giving the tools and knowledge to our policymakers to create an effective regulatory environment for the success of all children and youth.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Kalra, for sharing this opinion with us. Before I ask you next question, I'd like to go to Ms. Lalita Trehan. One interesting question I'd like to ask you, Ms. Trehan, that when you are teaching online, it is not that effective as a classroom teaching is. And this is what adds to the kind of, a frustration among students, right? And also among the parents also. Many times they get irritated that things are not working, and their children are not able to ask questions, they are not able to answer questions, they are not able to clear their doubts. How have you been able to handle this situation, Ms. Trehan, in your school, and what is that you have been suggesting or recommending to to other schools also to handle these kind of issues?
In fact, thank you. In fact, we were online for a short period. I would say, I think we went on site and online in August when we opened for fall. So, like you said, it was hard on the very young children. Like I said, online, we didn't do it for our toddler group. The toddler community is too young to focus and have concentration, and they walk away, and that's their age. So they're expected to do that. But even for young 3 years old, it was hard. And sometimes, like, the technology fails and children can't hear you. But we were like letting the children communicate, ask questions. To answer your question, they were able to ask questions. And teachers were very, very communicative when they were giving presentation. It was, I attended quite a few sessions myself. And it was like a group setting, like in a class. So each child was at home, they are learning, they're asking questions. Sometimes they were, how in classroom they get loud, they talk over each other. But then we will tell them, now it's time for you to mute yourself. So they were learning, and parents had to be there. Majority of the time, for 3-4 years old, parents have to be there to supervise and guide them and manage those affairs. So I would say it was not that easy, but it was beneficial for the time being under the circumstances. But when we opened up the school, we got about 50 to 60% response, and children did come back, and they're benefiting. And what we did was we tried to maintain the very small groups. Usually we have like 22 or 24 children in one classroom with 2 teachers. So we went down to 10 children with 1 teacher. We did want to mingle the children or the teachers. So we requested our teachers if they can, stay longer hours, 8 hours job. So that way we didn't have to move the children from one room to another. Usually that's what we do in the end of the day, where we combine the group. But in this case, we were keeping the children separate and the teachers separate so they can stay healthy. With God's grace, I would say we didn't have any incident or of illness of COVID-19 except for one teacher. She also got it from outside because she was traveling. So the children were able to ask questions. To answer your question about technology, it was hard. Elementary children did very well. And in fact, our elementary group is still on, 50% is still on site and still online.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like we have adapted very well.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Trehan. Peggy, I'd like to ask you a question which has been asked by one of our audience watching us live. And it says, which education skills or learning skills should you think we can give more focus on? More focus on e-learning to the students. This is one of the questions that has been asked. Peggy, I would like to ask this question to you.
Well, that's an interesting question. a lot of homeschoolers don't do e-learning. Oh, there I am. But we do a lot of hands-on in the home, but a lot of resources are found online. There's a lot of different ways that you can refocus and reorient learning through those, just the resources that parents can find. I love that, a lot of people were talking about how the student was accompanied by the parent when they were learning online, because a lot of times the technology, just walking your child through that. Sometimes I've seen parents make the mistake of, well, here's the program, go for it, and they don't take the time to really sit down with their student and walk them through that process so that they can really utilize it correctly. And, I had a child who I have unfortunately made that mistake myself. And, weeks later, I'm like, I haven't seen any lessons done. Well, I'm not exactly sure how to use it. So yes, it's there's a lot of reception on both ends. It has to, of course, be a usable product. Then there's so many different options for e-learning too. There's the live teacher. There is pre-recorded lessons that a student can do self-paced, or there's things where they're required to do it on a regular schedule basis and then check in with a teacher and have their stuff graded. You have to know your student, of course, and how they flourish best. We found that children who struggle have really enjoyed this new tech interface, because a lot of them, especially children on the autism spectrum, have had a lot of social anxieties. And when they can separate social practice with learning lots of skills that are just highly stressful already, the math, the reading, all those things, and learn them in different times and focus on those, that they actually do better. And so we've seen e-learning, as long as you can embrace that it's not going to come in one package, and that every child doesn't flourish from the same approach, that there are different approaches to e-learning, that it can be beneficial across the board. But of course you have to know your child, and that's the wonderful thing about having time with them, is that you learn that over time, and you try things out, and you also can't you can't just say, well, we bought this, and so therefore you must do it. A lot of time there's free samples, and we always tell parents, try them out before you invest a lot of money, or just see if this is a good fit. And sometimes it's not a good fit for your family's schedule, just because of the way that e-learning is be online at this time. Well, mom has to be at a meeting at this time, and maybe we don't have enough internet. And so all of that comes into play, but it can also be an incredible benefit, as we've learned as well from our community.
Right. Peggy, what are the latest methods probably you have adopted recently in your school to, to handle the social emotional development among the children? Would you like to comment on this, please?
Well, I don't run a school. We're a resource center for parents. So so parents come to our website to find vetted resources so that they can homeschool their own student. But we've found that there can just be a variety of different things that work, and so we try to point parents in that direction of this is what's going to work best for a student who, and kind of categorize that. But even we have parents come to us and say, this is the labels that's given my child, so what works best? And that doesn't work because one child on the spectrum can be completely different from another child on the spectrum. They have different gifts, and I know one of the panelist was talking about, just learning intelligences, and all of those things come into play, and we have to be able to dive into those. So if you have a child that loves nature, you're going to have to lean towards something that involves that nature aspect. So that's what kind of the benefit of our organization is that we just facilitate and help those learning environments versus having to customize from our end. We leave that up to the parent, and we just encourage them from there.
Right. Thank you so much, Peggy. Before I seek a closing remark from everyone, I would like to ask that there are questions which have been asked online by audiences who are watching us, people who are watching us live. And one interesting question which I see is that we are seeing a lot of online classes and online tutorials for coding and learning algorithms in early age. So to Mr. Kevin Kalra, and I'd like to ask the same question to Devi also, but first I'd like to ask Mr. Kalra, what is your view on this? Will coding and learning algorithms in early age is required? Do you think this is going to be an effective thing?
Yes, I think coding, programming, learning how to work with technology is a ubiquitous part of our society and our way of living. I think it will become a big part of the early years. But I think we must be careful about passive learning with coding. The first thing that young children, I believe, must do is touch and feel things with their hands and use their senses. And the first step before coding is not actually coding. It's learning how to make a logical argument. So math, language activities, sequencing activities, experiments in science, these build the framework that you need in order to be a successful coder. I think we'll be doing more coding and technology work in the elementary years. But I think in the early years, there has to be a greater focus on developing the right framework to become a successful coder. And that means focusing on your roots, the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. That's what builds your foundation. I also want to add that as we talk about technology, and this is building off what Peggy said, I think we also have to distinguish between passive technology experiences and active ones. And we're seeing that, I think, a lot with millennial parents. Our school serves quite a number of millennial parents. That when you're sitting with your child and watching a video with them and talking to them about what you're seeing and the content you're consuming, that suddenly becomes a very enriching educational experience. But if you're just giving your child the tablet and telling them sit here and watch it, which I understand happens, and that's okay, but that's a passive experience. They're not benefiting as much as if you were truly involved with that content, with actually watching that content together with your child.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kalra. Devi, what is your view on this? And how do you think coding and learning algorithms in early age is going to change the lives of students? And also, I'd like to ask you, Devi, how to generate the critical thinking in children at home?
Sure. So, Kevin, those are great comments. I agree with everything that you said. And I spent the summer, because there was nothing else that we could do, researching education over the history of education, if you will. And we've not made many changes in 128 years, which is pretty scary, right? So when we look at what's coming, the ability to step into the new technology and equipping our students to be aware of it and how to use it is really important to me. However, I don't believe that lower elementary should have anything to do with that. I think sort of the end of upper elementary. So we've introduced artificial intelligence and virtual reality to our 4th and 5th graders, and at very introductory level, just introduce them to this is a technology that is going to be happening and it's going to be widespread. I don't want my students ill-equipped. I want them to be able to go into this world and go, yeah, I know exactly what this is. I know how to use it. And so I've been working on a middle and high school concept that is going to allow students to explore those things and to figure out where their niche is with it. I believe, like Kevin, that we need to set a strong foundation in elementary school to get them ready. Can they manage their time? Can they manage a project? Can they think critically? Thinking critically is exactly what Kevin said. You watch a movie together and you talk about it. You read a story, you have a Socratic circle, and you defend your opinions because of something that you read. Everyone reads the same piece of evidence, and then you're able to point out your opinions based on what you read and be able to listen to others and learn from them and to attach what you've learned to something you already know, right? So all of those can accelerate the learning process. But being able to have curiosity, and I've worked with a lot of students over the years, by 3rd grade, there is no curiosity. There is no love of learning, and it breaks my heart. And so the way that you encourage that is you have teachers who are very engaged and enthusiastic about what they're doing and truly love the subject that they're teaching. And I think all of those pieces allow the child to really dig in. We use a lot of voice and choice at our school. I believe that content is a little overrated. If you know how to learn, if you have learning capacity, then you can learn anything. But if we kill the curiosity because we're forcing them to learn something they may not be interested in, then we never can get that back. So being able to ignite the curiosity and the wonder in our children will go a long way to helping them, whether it's coding or getting along with others or learning something that's truly important about themselves and accelerating their ability to have self-awareness. So I think all of those pieces are important.
Wonderful, Debbie. Thank you so much. Now, since we're about to finish this session formally, I would like to seek a closing remark from everyone, and I'll start with Nicolas to share his closing comments, and also any message that you would like to share with the parents and the community to keep their children healthy, happy, and free from any kind of mental stress. Nicolas.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take just a couple seconds to acknowledge the coding and dancers were fantastic. One way that I've seen successful coding, though, is actually making it a game. I have lots of students who have played online games that are active but teach the skills of coding. So it is fun, and they want to do it on their own. It's something that they want to do. So, and that kind of goes to my core beliefs of how I treat physical education, is that the games are fun and kids want to play. So if I can essentially integrate classroom curriculums into the games, essentially learning through games is one of the most entertaining but enriching ways that many of my students have been learning. So whether that has been in the classroom, in a gym classroom, whether that's been at home, games promote fun. Everyone likes to play games, yet if you can learn while you play games, that I think creates something completely different, which can not only be successful for the student, but also the parents are going to be interested. The teachers enjoy it more because they see the love that the children have for playing games. It's something that they'll do spontaneously. If you can encourage games that also help children learn, then that is, to me, the best that we can do as teachers. And that's that's been my mission with Montessori physical education. I create games that integrate with the classroom curriculum. A lot of specific Montessori lessons, but a lot of lessons that even general education I think would find very useful. So that has been my philosophy in the past and moving forward for my whole educational experience. So I do want to say thank you so much for having me and for having this panel. It's been fantastic seeing the questions and hearing other opinions. This has been a fantastic experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas. Your closing comments, Ms. Lalita Trehan. You have been one of the very experienced educator and trainer. What is the message that you would like to share with the parents out there?
Thank you, Herschel. My views are like parents should definitely establish and maintain a routine which has a structure and which supports child's physical, social, and emotional well-being. And another point I would encourage parents is to listen and speak to your children and letting them express their needs and emotions and give accurate answers, honest and accurate and age-appropriate answers. Be honest about it. Even if it's very brief, but be honest. Teach simple steps to stay healthy and make sure children are engaged in learning. Learning is happening every minute of life.
Yes.
Even when they're eating or brushing, but do it in a very positive way, where we are not humiliating or intimidating our children. And if you observe any signs of sadness or unhealthy eating, or they're not able to focus, that should be a cue for us to see if they need any help and find out what's going on in their hearts and what they're feeling, and see how we can help them. Spend time with them, playing indoor games, outdoor, playing hoop, bicycling, going to the park. Stay socially connected as much as you can. And it is very, very mentally healthy and helpful to be outdoor, go hiking, walking, even going to the park. Last, please take care of yourself. The parents have to take care of themselves so they can be good role model for the children. Because when adults in the household are worried or stressed, even very young children will experience emotional stress.
Right.
So be mindful of when you're talking to your spouse. Be careful how and where you're talking, what you're talking. So please take care of yourself, take care of your own mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Trehan. Over to you, Peggy, for your closing comments.
Sure. I just want to encourage parents, educators, just that, each child is unique. And we have so many norms and standards that we have for children, and yet they have their own timelines. And to take a step back and to just evaluate them on who they are, the progress that they have made, and the accomplishments that they make, their uniqueness. And I know that's difficult when you're in a classroom, but that is what allows them to become who they can shine and be the best. And instead of trying to fit them in a mold that looks good in an education setting, but later on in life is not going to benefit them at all. And so I just want to encourage those that are watching that each child has so much potential. Even those that we work with, whose parents, they have struggles, we see amazing things happen when we allow children to progress at their own rate and to use the gifts they have. So that's all I want to share.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peggy. And over to you, Mr. Kalra, for your closing comments.
Sure. Well, thank you, Harshal. Thank you, Elets. Thank you, Priya from Tittle Talk, for helping organize today's session. I always think it's great when educators from around the world can come together to talk and share their experiences. I think as part of my concluding remarks, I just wanted to tell our parents that you can do it. It's been a hard year, and you've got this. You have to just trust your positive instincts, and all will be well. And your child is not behind. We're here as educators to help them catch up, to close those gaps, but they're not behind. And we're grateful that all these children are fortunate to have you as their parents. And also that this is now a chance for us to reimagine what education can be. We've had a whole year to think about, reflect, imagine what an education system could look like to serve all children. And this is our chance to redesign it, rethink it, and reimagine it. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you so much, Mr. Kalra. Debbie, over to you for your closing comments.
Thank you. I'd like to propose a challenge to the parents that are listening. We end each day with a compliment circle, and what that looks like is our students don't know who they're going to be sitting next to, don't know which direction the circle is going to go, but they need to come up with something great about the person next to them that happened that day. And the verbiage that they use is, today I noticed, maybe they helped me on the playground, and you got an ice pack for my knee when I fell down. And what that tells me about you is that you are caring, observant, and a great friend. And when you put that exercise at the end of the day, it could be at the end of a meal, it could be before bedtime, it really validates who they are. It gives them an opportunity. You know yourself, whatever you look for is what you're going to find. So if you're looking for the best in your children as they're looking for the best in you, you're only going to create more of that. Those are really great. Another option I would offer our parents is to think about having regular family meetings where everyone has an opportunity and a vote, and you discuss things as a family, whether that be your next vacation or how you're going to run a cooperative household. All of those things can be done as a unit. When you feel you're contributing, you have a much more invested sort of stake into the family, and allowing children to know that they have a voice and that we hear them and we validate what they want to do and we want their input does a lot to increase their self-esteem and keep them engaged, whether it's in the family, academics, or life itself. And as Kevin said, I love all of the work that parents have done this year. I know it's been hard. I know there's been times when it's been frustrating, but it's such an opportunity to reflect on, what do we leave in this lockdown and what do we take moving forward? Because we don't have to go back to normal. We can make the future whatever we want. And I know we're going to make some great choices and really come out of this a lot stronger and a lot healthier and a lot more connected.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you so much, all the esteemed panelists, for your wonderful comments and views that you have shared with us. And with the more than 1,500 people are watching us live at this moment. And I'm sure they must have learned a lot from this conversation. And with this, we come to the, we formally close this panel discussion here. And as a token of appreciation, we would like to present certificates to you all, to Nicolas Lepine, Montessori Upper Elementary Teacher, Athletic Director, Physical Education Instructor, and Sports Coach. Thank you so much for joining, Nicolas. To Ms. Kevin Kalra, Chief Operating Officer, Montessori Preschool, Texas, USA. Thank you so much, Mr. Kalra, for joining us. Ms. Debbie Elder, Head of School, Cherry Oak Primary School, Virginia, USA. Thank you so much for joining, Eddie. Debbie, in this panel discussion. Ms. Lalita Trehan, Montessori Educator and Trainer, Houston, Texas, United States and India. Thank you so much, Ms. Trehan, for sharing your views on this platform. Ms. Peggy Ployhar, Founder and CEO, SPED Homeschool, Conroe, Texas, USA. So with this, I once again thank everyone for taking time out from your busy schedule and participating in this panel discussion and sharing your views on this wonderful platform. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harshal.
Thank you,
It was pleasure being here.
Thank you.